Dr. Han Jinwoo rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the computer screens in front of him. The clock on the wall showed 3:15 a.m., and he was the only person still working at the Korea Aerospace Research Institute's Deep Space Listening Station. Most of his colleagues had gone home hours ago, but something about tonight's data kept him at his desk. The station's massive radio telescopes had been collecting signals from space for years. Usually, these signals came from natural sources like stars or distant galaxies. But tonight was different. Tonight, the pattern made him sit up straight in his chair. "This can't be right," he said to himself, reaching for his coffee cup. The signal was coming from Proxima Centauri, the star nearest to Earth's solar system. But unlike the random noise they usually received, this signal had a clear pattern. It repeated every 74 seconds, exactly. Jinwoo picked up his phone and called Dr. Kim Soo-ji, his closest colleague. Despite the late hour, she answered on the third ring. "Soo-ji, I need you to come to the station right now," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I found something you need to see." "It's the middle of the night, Jinwoo," she replied, her voice heavy with sleep. "I know, but this is important. I think." He paused, hardly believing what he was about to say. "I think we might have found a signal. An artificial one." 20 minutes later, Soo-ji rushed into the control room, her hair still messy from sleep. She didn't even take off her coat before sitting down next to Jinwoo. "Show me," she said simply. Jinwoo pointed to the main screen. "Look at this pattern. It repeats perfectly every 74 seconds. Natural signals don't do that." Soo-ji leaned closer to the screen, her eyes wide. "Have you run it through the verification protocols?" 3 times, Jinwoo nodded. "It's not interference from satellites. It's not from any known human sources. And look at this." He pressed a few keys, and a new graph appeared. There's a mathematical sequence embedded in the signal. Prime numbers in order, but with a twist. Each one is encoded in a way we've never seen before. They spent the next 2 hours analyzing the signal. Soo-ji ran more tests, while Jinwoo documented everything. The sun was rising when they finally sat back, looking at each other in amazement. "We need to call the director," Soo-ji said quietly. Jinwoo nodded. "And after that, we need to contact the International Astronomical Union. This is too big for just us." Soo-ji put her hand on Jinwoo's shoulder. "Do you realize what this means? After all these years of searching, of wondering if we're alone." "We're not," Jinwoo finished. He looked out the window at the dawn breaking over the mountains. "Everything changes today." Within hours, the station was buzzing with activity. More scientists arrived, and the computers worked overtime to analyze every aspect of the signal. Security teams appeared at the doors, and government officials began calling nonstop. Jinwoo hardly noticed the chaos around him. He kept his eyes on the signal, watching it repeat its pattern again and again. In his 30 years as an astronomer, he had always hoped for this moment, but never truly expected it would come. As he watched the screens, Jinwoo thought about how this discovery would change the world. Humanity had just received proof that they weren't alone in the universe, but the signal seemed to be more than just a hello, hidden in its complex patterns. He could see what looked like instructions. Instructions for what? He didn't know yet. "Dr. Han," a voice called from the doorway. "The UN Security Council is on the line. They want to speak with you immediately." Jinwoo took a deep breath and straightened his lab coat. The day that would change human history had begun. And somehow, he knew this signal was just the beginning. 3 days after the signal's discovery, Dr. Lee Do-hyun stood in front of the United Nations Security Council in New York. The famous linguist had been called from his quiet university office in Seoul to help decode the mysterious message. Now he faced the most important presentation of his life. "The signal contains more than just prime numbers," Do-hyun explained, pointing to the large screen behind him. "There are patterns within patterns. It's like reading a book written in many layers." His voice was steady, despite his nervousness. In the front row, Dr. Han Jinwoo and Dr. Kim Suji watched carefully. They had spent the last 72 hours working with Do-hyun, sharing everything they knew about the signal. Now, they hoped the world's leaders would understand its importance. "We believe this is not just a greeting," Do-hyun continued. "It's an instruction manual. The aliens are teaching us how to build something." He clicked to the next slide, showing complex diagrams that his team had extracted from the signal's code. A murmur ran through the room. The UN Secretary General leaned forward. "What kind of device are they asking us to build, Dr. Lee?" "Based on our analysis, it appears to be a quantum communication device," Do-hyun replied. "Something far more advanced than anything we have now. But interestingly, they'd broken down the instructions into steps we can understand with our current technology." The room erupted in discussion. Security officials whispered to each other, while scientists frantically took notes. The Chinese representative stood up first. "How can we be sure this isn't a trap? Building an unknown device from alien instructions could be dangerous." Do-hyun nodded. He had expected this question. "That's why we need to establish a first contact protocol team immediately. We need experts from every field: physicists, engineers, security specialists, and ethicists. We should study every part of these instructions carefully before we build anything." The discussion continued for hours. By evening, the Security Council had reached a decision. They would create an international team to study the signal and its instructions. The team would be based in South Korea, near where the signal was first discovered, but would include scientists from all member nations. Later that night, Do-hyun sat with Jinwoo and Suji in their hotel's quiet restaurant. They were all exhausted, but too excited to sleep. "They chose you to lead the linguistics team," Jinwoo said, smiling at Do-hyun. "That's a big responsibility." Do-hyun stared into his coffee cup. "I still can't believe this is happening. Yesterday, I was teaching university students about ancient languages. Today, I'm trying to decode an alien message." Suji touched his arm gently. "You're the best person for this job. You see patterns that others miss. That's exactly what we need right now." Their phones buzzed simultaneously. A message from the newly formed First Contact Protocol team. Work would begin tomorrow morning. Scientists from around the world were already flying to South Korea. "The hard part starts now," Jinwoo said, reading the message. "We have to figure out exactly what they're trying to tell us, and why they chose this moment to make contact." Do-hyun looked out the window at the bright New York skyline. Somewhere up there, beyond the stars, someone was waiting for humanity's response. He hoped they would be ready to answer soon. As the three scientists prepared to return home, they knew they were part of something unprecedented in human history. The next few weeks would change everything, if they could understand the message correctly. The weight of that responsibility sat heavily on their shoulders, but also filled them with determination. Humanity's first steps into a larger universe had begun. Dr. Park Mi-rae stood in the center of the massive construction facility, watching as teams of scientists and engineers worked on different parts of the quantum communication device. The facility, built in just 2 weeks near the mountains of South Korea, now housed the most important scientific project in human history. "The quantum core is starting to take shape," she said to Dr. Han Jinwoo, who stood beside her. Mi-rae had been chosen to lead the construction team because of her expertise in quantum physics. Even she had to admit that the alien design was far beyond anything she had studied before. Jinwoo nodded, looking at the complex machinery being assembled. "How much of the blueprint do we understand now?" "About 60%, Mi-rae replied. "Dr. Lee Do-hyun's team makes new breakthroughs in understanding the instructions every day. The interesting thing is that each part we build helps us understand the next part better." Across the room, teams from different countries worked together, sharing knowledge and expertise. American engineers worked alongside Russian scientists, while Chinese quantum experts collaborated with European researchers. Political differences had been set aside in pursuit of this greater goal. Mi-rae walked over to the central computer station, where Dr. Kim Suji was analyzing new data. Any progress with those space coordinates we found hidden in the blueprints? Sujai looked up from her screen. Yes, actually. We've confirmed they point to a specific location in the Proxima Centauri system. It seems the quantum device isn't just for communication. It might be able to show us something at those exact coordinates. The discovery of the coordinates had been unexpected. They were woven into the blueprint's mathematical patterns, like a map hidden within a puzzle. Whatever the aliens wanted humanity to see, it was important enough to build this complex device. As they talked, a young engineer ran up to them. Dr. Park, the quantum core is showing signs of activity. Myray hurried to the central platform where the core was being assembled. The crystal-like structure at its center had begun to emit a soft blue light. According to the blueprints, this was supposed to happen, but seeing it in reality was still amazing. All readings are normal, one of the technicians reported. The quantum field is stable and growing exactly as the instructions predicted. Myray felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Everything was working perfectly, almost too perfectly. She had been a scientist long enough to know that new technology usually needed many attempts before working correctly. Yet this alien device was functioning exactly as described on the first try. Later that evening, Myray met with Jin-Woo, Suji, and Do-hyun in the facility's conference room. The blue glow from the quantum core could be seen through the windows, casting strange shadows. "We're ahead of schedule," Myray told them. "At this rate, the device will be ready for full activation in 3 days. Have we taken all possible safety precautions?" Jin-Woo asked. "Once we activate it, there's no going back." Do-hyun spread out his latest translations on the table. "I found something interesting in the newest part of the signal. The aliens seem to be waiting for something. The language suggests they're expecting a specific response from us." Sujai looked at the glowing quantum core. "Whatever they're waiting for, we'll know soon. That device is humanity's first step into their world. I just hope we're ready for what we'll find." As the scientists discussed their plans, the quantum core continued to pulse with its mysterious blue light. Somewhere in space, an advanced civilization was watching humanity build their first quantum communication device. The real test was about to begin. The day of activation arrived with a sense of anticipation that filled the entire facility. Dr. Park Myray stood at the main control panel, her hand steady despite her racing heart. Around her, dozens of scientists and government officials watched in silence. "All systems are ready," she announced, looking at Dr. Han Jin-Woo for final approval. As project leader, the final decision rested with him. Jin-Woo took a deep breath and nodded. "Begin the activation sequence." Myray started the process they had rehearsed many times. The quantum core's blue glow intensified, filling the room with its ethereal light. Numbers and readings flashed across the screens as the device powered up. "Quantum field is stable," reported Dr. Kim Suji from her station. "Communication channels are opening exactly as predicted by the blueprints." The room grew quiet as the device reached full power. For several long moments, nothing happened. Then suddenly, all the screens lit up at once. "We're receiving a transmission," Suji exclaimed. "It's coming through the quantum channel." Dr. Lee Do-hyun rushed to his translation computer. The alien message appeared on his screen, but this time it was different from the construction blueprints. This was a direct communication. "I can read it," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "The universal mathematical language they established in the blueprints. They're using it to speak with us directly." The first message from an alien civilization appeared on the main screen for everyone to read. "Greetings, humans of Earth. You have successfully completed the first stage of contact." The room erupted in celebration, but quickly quieted as more text appeared. "We are the Collective, a gathering of civilizations from across the galaxy. Your world has been part of a greater experiment, one of many tests we conduct to find species ready to join the galactic community." Jin-Woo stepped forward. Following the communication protocols they had established, he typed a response. "We are honored to make contact. Why did you choose this moment to reach out to us?" The answer came quickly. "Your species has reached a critical point in its development. We have watched your progress with great interest. Your rapid advancement from receiving our signal to building the quantum communicator has exceeded our expectations." Suji's computer began picking up new data streams. "They're sending us information about their civilization." No, civilizations plural. The collective appears to be made up of species from hundreds of different worlds. As the team processed this information, another message appeared. However, building the communicator was only the first test. Now comes the true challenge. The scientists exchanged worried looks. Do-hyun typed quickly, "What challenge do you mean?" "We have prepared 3 trials," the collective responded. "These will test not only your technological capabilities, but your wisdom, creativity, and ethics. Success will mean acceptance into the galactic community. Failure will result in isolation until your species reaches greater maturity, approximately 1,000 Earth years." Jinwoo felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Humanity's future would depend on how they handled these trials. He looked around at his team, the best minds Earth had to offer, and saw determination in their eyes. "We accept your challenge," he typed. "When do we begin?" The response appeared immediately. "The trials begin now. Prepare yourselves, humans of Earth. You have 1 Earth year to complete them all." As the message faded, the team realized that everything they had done so far, discovering the signal, decoding it, building the device, had been just the beginning. The real test of humanity's readiness was about to start. The first challenge from the collective arrived early the next morning. Dr. Han Jinwoo gathered his team in the main laboratory as the quantum communicator displayed the alien message. "Your first trial involves understanding dark energy," the message read. "We have sent you data from our observations across 10,000 galaxies. Create a model that explains the patterns you see." The scientists stared at the massive amount of information flowing across their screens. Dr. Park Mireille shook her head slowly. "This would take our best supercomputers years to process." That's when they heard a quiet voice from the back of the room. "Maybe not. I think I see something in the numbers." Everyone turned to look at Choi Yun-ho, a young physicist who had recently joined the team. At just 25 years old, he was the youngest person in the facility. Most people didn't even know why he was there. "Look at this," Yun-ho said, walking to the main screen. "The data isn't random. It follows a musical pattern, like a symphony. If we process it that way, we could understand it much faster." Dr. Kim Suji moved closer to examine his work. "He's right. The patterns, they're like music frequencies. The aliens have organized the dark energy data like a musical score." The team worked through the night, following Yunho's unusual approach. They converted the complex data into sound waves, creating an eerie but beautiful melody that represented the behavior of dark energy across the universe. "This is remarkable," Jinwoo said, watching as Yunho explained his findings to the senior scientists. "No one has ever thought to analyze cosmic data this way before." By morning, they had created a working model. The collective's response came quickly. "Interesting. You found a solution we had not anticipated. This shows promising creativity." The second challenge appeared immediately after. This one involved solving a problem with quantum entanglement. Again, Yunho noticed something others had missed. "The young ones often see what we cannot," Meirei said to Jinwoo as they watched Yunho work. "We get too set in our traditional ways of thinking." The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Each time the team solved one part of a challenge, the collective presented them with a harder problem. But with each solution, they learned more about the universe and their place in it. "There's something strange about these challenges," Do-hyun said during a late-night meeting. "The collective seems more interested in how we solve the problems than in whether we get the right answer." Jinwoo agreed. He had noticed that the aliens paid special attention to solutions that surprised them, approaches that were uniquely human. As they prepared for the third and final challenge, Jinwoo gathered the team. "Remember," he said, "we're not just proving that we can solve these problems. We're showing them who we are as a species, our creativity, our ability to think differently. These are our greatest strengths." The quantum communicator glowed steadily in the background, waiting to deliver the final test. Whatever it would be, they knew it would be the hardest yet. But looking at his team, especially Yun-Ho with his unconventional ideas, Jinwoo felt hopeful. Perhaps humanity's greatest advantage was their ability to see things in new ways, to find paths that even advanced alien civilizations hadn't considered. Dr. Kang Jae-yun arrived at the facility on a cold morning, carrying a thick notebook filled with unusual quantum mechanics theories. She had been called in because of her different approach to physics, one that many of her colleagues had dismissed as too unconventional. The team was struggling with the second challenge from the collective. They needed to create a new type of quantum field, but everything they tried failed. Dr. Park Mi-rae had suggested bringing in Jae-yun, despite some objections from other scientists. Dr. Kang's theories might seem strange, Mi-rae explained to Dr. Han Jinwoo, but right now, strange might be exactly what we need. Jae-yun sat quietly in the corner of the laboratory, watching the quantum communicator. She observed how the blue light pulsed and moved. After several hours, she finally spoke. "We're thinking about this the wrong way," she said, walking to the main console. "The collective assumes we will approach this like they do, using their advanced knowledge. But what if we try something simpler?" She opened her notebook and showed them her drawings. Instead of complex equations, she had sketched patterns that looked like ocean waves and tree branches. "Nature solved quantum problems long before we knew what quantum mechanics was," she explained. "Plants use quantum effects in photosynthesis. Birds use it in navigation. What if we learn from them?" Yun-Ho moved closer, his eyes bright with interest. "Like how leaves find the most efficient way to capture sunlight." "Exactly," Jae-yun smiled. "We don't need to create a new quantum field. We can guide the existing one, like a river changing its course." The team worked through the next 2 days, combining Jae-yun's natural approach with their technical knowledge. They used patterns found in sunflowers and seashells to shape the quantum fields. It was unlike anything in the collective's database. When they activated their solution, the quantum communicator glowed brighter than ever before. The collective's response came quickly. "Fascinating," the aliens wrote. "You have discovered an entirely new way to manipulate quantum fields. Our civilizations have always approached this challenge with complex technology. Your solution is elegantly simple." Dr. Kim Soo-jae studied the readings with amazement. "The quantum field is more stable than we've ever seen it. It's actually more efficient than the collective's method." "That's because we didn't try to force it," Jae-yun explained. "We worked with the natural patterns that already exist in our universe." Jinwoo watched as the team celebrated their success. He realized that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or even their intelligence. It was their ability to see connections that others missed, to find simple solutions to complex problems. Later that evening, as the facility grew quiet, Jinwoo found Jae-yun still working in the laboratory. She was drawing new patterns in her notebook, combining quantum mechanics with designs from butterfly wings and snowflakes. "You know what," he said, "when we first received the signal from the collective, we thought we would be learning everything from them. But it seems we have some things to teach them as well." Jae-yun nodded without looking up from her drawings. "The universe speaks to all of us in different ways," she said. "Perhaps that's why the collective is running these tests. They're not just looking for species that can copy their knowledge. They're looking for new ways of understanding the universe." As they talked, the quantum communicator continued its steady pulse, its light seeming somehow warmer than before. The next challenge still lay ahead, but now they faced it with growing confidence. Humanity had found its own path among the stars. The final challenge arrived with only 3 days left in the year-long testing period. The entire facility fell silent as the collective's message appeared on the quantum communicator's screen. "Your last test is different," the message read. "We have detected a massive solar storm approaching a populated solar system. You have the knowledge now to redirect it. However, redirecting it will cause it to strike another inhabited world instead. Show us how you would handle this situation." Dr. Han Jinwoo looked at his team's worried faces. This wasn't just a scientific problem. It was an ethical one. "They're testing our character," Dr. Lee Do-hyun said quietly. "How we solve this will show them what kind of species we are." The team gathered in the main conference room. Dr. Park Mi-rae brought up the data about the solar storm. Dr. Kim Soo-jae analyzed the 2 planets that would be affected. Dr. Kang Jae-yun studied the storm's energy patterns, while young Choi Yun-ho worked on calculations. "The first planet has a population of 10 billion, Soo-jae reported. "The second has 2 billion. If we look at the numbers alone, the choice seems clear. Save the planet with more people." Jinwoo shook his head. "But can we choose to sacrifice one population to save another? There must be another way." "Perhaps," Jae-yun said, looking up from her work. "We're approaching this the same way we did the quantum field problem. We're trying to control the storm instead of working with it." Yun-ho jumped up suddenly. "Dr. Kang is right. Look at the storm's pattern. It's like a river of energy. What if we don't redirect it? What if we split it instead?" The team worked through the night, combining their different skills. Mi-rae's knowledge of quantum physics, Jae-yun's understanding of natural patterns, and Yun-ho's fresh perspective all came together. They designed a system of quantum fields that would divide the storm's energy, weakening it enough that both planets would survive. "It will still cause damage," Mi-rae warned, "but both civilizations will survive. They'll need to work together to rebuild, but no one has to be sacrificed." As dawn broke on the final day, they sent their solution to the collective. The wait for a response felt endless. Finally, the quantum communicator lit up. "This is unexpected," the collective wrote. "In 10,000 years of giving this test, no species has ever refused to choose between the planets. You found a way to save both, even though it required more effort and risk." The team held their breath as more text appeared. "This solution tells us more about humanity than all your previous answers combined. You refuse to accept that one population must die to save another. You worked harder to find a way to preserve all life. This is the true measure of a civilization's readiness to join the galactic community." Jinwoo felt tears in his eyes as he read the next lines. "You have not only passed the final test, you have redefined it. Future species will now be presented with your solution as an example of ethical problem solving." Do-hyun translated the last message with a shaking voice. "Prepare yourselves, humans of Earth. You have earned your place among the stars." The quantum communicator glowed brighter than ever before, its blue light filling the room with hope. Humanity had faced its greatest test, not with advanced technology, but with compassion and determination to protect all life. 1 month after passing the final test, Dr. Han Jinwoo stood at the window of the newly built Galactic Communication Center. The facility, much larger than their original building, now housed dozens of quantum communicators. Each one connected Earth to a different alien civilization within the collective. The Australian team has successfully established contact with the Centauri system, Dr. Kim Soo-jae reported, walking up to join him. That makes 15 direct connections to different civilizations this week. Jinwoo nodded, watching teams of scientists from various countries working together below. The scene was very different from that first night when he had discovered the signal alone in his small observatory. Dr. Park Mi-rae entered the room, followed by Dr. Kang, Jae-yun, and young Choi Yun-ho. They had just finished their first session, teaching other civilizations about their natural approach to quantum physics. "The collective was right," Mi-rae said, setting down her tablet. Our way of thinking is different from theirs. Several species have already asked to send their scientists to Earth to learn from us. Dr. Lee Do-hyun joined them, carrying a new message from the collective. They want us to help reform the testing system, he announced. They believe our emphasis on saving lives and finding peaceful solutions should become part of how they evaluate new civilizations. Jin-woo remembered how nervous they had been just a year ago, worried about proving themselves worthy of joining the galactic community. Now, humanity was helping to shape that community's future. We have visitors arriving tomorrow from 3 different star systems, Suji said, checking her schedule. They're particularly interested in Yunho's musical approach to data analysis and Jae-yun's nature-based solutions. Yunho, who had grown more confident over the past year, smiled. I've been working on new ways to translate alien languages using musical patterns. Each species has its own rhythm when they communicate. Outside the window, the sun was setting over the mountains. Construction crews were building new housing for the alien scientists who would soon arrive to study at Earth's first galactic university. The small town near the facility had become a bustling international city almost overnight. Sometimes I wonder, Jin-woo said quietly, what would have happened if we had chosen the easier path in that final test? If we had simply redirected the solar storm and sacrificed one planet to save another? We wouldn't be who we are if we had done that, Jae-yun replied. The collective chose to contact us now because humanity was ready to show there's always another way. A harder way, perhaps, but one that values all life. As they talked, more messages arrived from across the galaxy. Some brought scientific questions, others sought advice on solving conflicts between civilizations. Earth had become known as a place where difficult problems found unexpected solutions. Tomorrow, the first alien delegation arrives, Suji reminded them. We'll be teaching them, but we'll also be learning from them. This is just the beginning of our journey. Jin-woo looked at his team, now his family, and felt profound gratitude. They had not only proved that humanity wasn't alone in the universe, they had shown that humanity had something unique to contribute to the galactic community. As night fell, the quantum communicators glowed with messages from distant stars. Humanity had taken its place among the civilizations of the galaxy, not just as students eager to learn, but as teachers with wisdom of their own to share. The search for extraterrestrial life had ended, and a new adventure was just beginning.